can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, today's video, I'm going to be breaking down Immortal X-Men number 9 by Kieran Gillen and Lucas Wernick. If all of the other previous issues of Immortal X-Men were supposed to be character studies of each of the members of the Quiet Council, this one, in a roundabout way, is a somewhat character study on the character of Kate Pryde. And while that story is technically running alongside Mr. Sinister's arc, in this book, Mr. Sinister's arc I think is probably the more memorable portion of this story and puts Nathaniel Essex in a Groundhog's Day situation. Ever since Kieran Gillen kicked off Immortal X-Men number 1, we learned that Mr. Sinister had been creating clones of Moira McTaggart, each of which still has their X gene, meaning they also have the power that was revealed to us in House of X number 2, that when Moira McTaggart dies, the timeline is completely rebooted and started over. However, Mr. Sinister has come up with a way to make save points in various points in the timeline, basically pulling a save scrum technique that I believe many of you who are familiar with the XCOM series of video games is very familiar with. Not gonna lie, I do it too. But yes, he's save scrumming. He's saving specific points in the timeline that have already happened and going back to them if and when something doesn't work out. Each of these different Moira clones that he has that look like they are varying different ages is for a very specific reason. Each one of them is from a particular point in the timeline of Moira's age that coincides with how far back Mr. Sinister wants to go in the timeline. And it works the same as it would for Moira. All he has to do is kill the Moira that coincides with the particular point in time he wants to go back to. And the Moira that he wants to use is one whose save point is set just after the events of Judgment Day. Because at the end of it all, Judgment Day was a huge monkey wrench in his whole program. He was unable to use his various and sundry Moiras to change anything, what he has been referring to as his Moira engine, so he doesn't want to go back through any of that. Not to mention, it was a huge ordeal for him, not just because the end of the world was coming, but largely because he didn't matter in any of it. Even though technically he did, he was never judged the way the others were judged, and it's even brought up here that is a huge point of contention for him with that Marvel Comics event. Not only that, but Destiny even poses the question, well, maybe you didn't get judged, but did Dr. Stasis get judged? And as we know, Dr. Stasis has revealed that he believes he is the original Nathaniel Essex, though that has all been called into question with the previous issue of Immortal X-Men, revealing that there are other Sinister clones out there with various suit cards on their forehead, so Nathaniel Essex may not even be the real Sinister. But I bring all this up because Sinister is caught in a little bit of a loop. Right now, he's discovering that the Moira clones that he's created, they're not like the other clones that he's created. He can clone the same individual multiple times with very little signs of degradation in that clone's physiological integrity. But with the Moira clones, he's not able to clone them as many times as he would anything else. And this takes us back to House of X number 2. We learned in that issue that Moira McTaggart was in fact a mutant the entire time, she just didn't know it. And when Destiny and Mystique had confronted her about her being a mutant, what we learned that she was fated to live 10 lives, no more, unless she made the right choice in her 10th life. And we never really knew what that was, but as we got to the 10 deaths part of the 10 lives and 10 deaths of Wolverine story arc, we learned that the right choice was to turn herself into a cyborg. She would ultimately die at the hands of Omega Wolverine from the year 1000 from the House of X and Powers of 10 story arc, who had gone back in time to kill her. And with her having already turned herself into a cyborg and very likely also being infected by the transmode virus that is typically associated with the phalanx that we learned she had access to in year 1000, it was revealed that she is in fact alive yet again and operating as one of the X-Men's new current big bads. Sinister is about to learn the very same lesson about his Moira engine. He's only going to get 10 tries out of it, and over the course of this issue, we see Sinister doing the absolute most in an effort to try to kill the Quiet Council. Because right now the Quiet Council knows about Dr. Stasis, and this has compromised the entire situation for him. Not only that, he specifically starts out with trying to kill Hope Summers, but Destiny always knows what he's about to do, and every single time that he is trying to kill Hope Summers, or anyone else for that matter, Destiny warns everyone else, and he is subsequently killed. We see this happen 10 separate times throughout the course of this issue. And the reason why he keeps doing this is because Destiny said something to him at the beginning of this issue, and something that's kind of been going back and forth between them since this whole Immortal X-Men business began, that they need to be on the same side, but that's just the thing. Sinister doesn't really want to be on Destiny's side. The only side Sinister wants to be on is his own. Everything that Sinister has been doing as of late is setting up Kieran Gillen's Sins of Sinister arc that's going to be coming up this January, where Sinister has created this strange Age of Apocalypse style timeline, only instead of doing it on a single alternate reality level, he's done this on a near multiversal level. And instead of it being the Age of Apocalypse, it's going to be the Age of Sinister, where Sinister has implanted himself into pretty much every important event across the timeline and every important person across the entirety of the multiverse. And we'll have to wait till we get there before we really know the full extent of what's going on there, but just know everything that Sinister has been doing with these Moira clones, all of this pretty much builds up to the Sins of Sinister event. Everything he's doing now in this issue, with repeatedly trying to assassinate various and sundry members of the Quiet Council, and in turn, himself either getting killed immediately after trying to kill someone, or succeeded in killing someone, or killing himself once he realizes that his plan has completely gone ass over tea kettle. It's not until his 10th life that he's actually successful in pulling off the right moves, hence why I said earlier, he's learning the lesson that Moira McTaggart learned. He was only fated to be able to reboot that specific part of the timeline with that specific Moira 10 times. Each of those Moira clones can only truly be rebooted 10 times, and it's not until Moira 6's 10th reboot that he finally pulls off what he was going for, realizing that the best way to get rid of the Quiet Council members he wants to get rid of is to not just try to kill one singular telepath, but to kill all of them. He was able to lock Charles Xavier, Emma Frost, as well as Exodus and Hope Summers into a psionic loop. And while Hope Summers has synced her powers with Exodus, she's completely indestructible. So while the telepaths of the Quiet Council are locked in that psionic loop, and Sinister sets off his telekinetic pulse that would normally kill everyone who was locked into that loop, Exodus and Hope are indestructible at this point. So only Xavier and Emma get clapped in this particular instance, but he's still able to take the both of them out using various and sundry different genetic pieces of other characters on Krakoa, doing crazy things like combining the powers of Gambit and Harry Leland of the Hellfire Club, creating a bomb in the form of a communion wafer specifically tailor-made to be able to kill Exodus, while Hope Summers doesn't necessarily require the same level of attention. Now that she can no longer use Exodus's indestructibility, he's able to use the powers of Eunice the Untouchable, creating bullets made from that mutant's capabilities that can create force fields upon impact, and using such a bullet completely bisects Hope Summers. With that, he's able to kill pretty much half, almost half, of the Quiet Council, leaving only characters like Destiny and Mystique, Sebastian Shaw, Colossus and Nightcrawler, and Kate Pryde, and well, technically himself. Now, the funny thing about this story, and the reason why Kate Pryde is featured in this one, is not just because we're learning more about her personality. I think Kieran Gillen went with the smart money on this by not really spending any time giving us any deeper character narrative about Kate Pryde, because let's be real, we have had comics about Kate Pryde for time immemorial. If you don't know her personality by now, it's kind of more on you than it is on him to tell you about it. But what we do learn is that Kate Pryde is the only person, maybe other than Destiny, who is starting to realize what it is going on, while Destiny can see the future of what it is Sinister is about to do and is able to warn others about it before he can fully pull it off, only with the 10th time not working out quite the way Destiny had planned. Because we're focusing on Kate Pryde, we recognize that she's the one who's kind of picking up on everything that's going on despite all the rebooting timelines. Every single time that Sinister has rebooted the timeline, she's the one who picks up on what it is that Sinister's about to do, only typically about a little bit too late. And in this instance, after a sizable portion of the Quiet Council has been destroyed, she realizes what Sinister's up to. Now, she doesn't really say exactly what it is she thinks he's doing, but she seems to have some kind of insight on this. I don't know if this is like to do with a quirk of her powers. Her intangibility gives Kate Pryde a lot of wiggle room when it comes to the powers and abilities of other characters. Case in point, it's actually somewhat difficult to read Kate Pryde's mind if she doesn't want you to read it, because her intangibility makes it more difficult for telepaths to psionically read her thoughts. It's not to say no one can, people have, it's just that if she doesn't want you to read her mind, she can figure out ways to make that impossible. And we've also seen during Jerry Duggan's Marauder series that Kate Pryde's power makes her difficult to resurrect, as well as making it virtually impossible for her to use the Krakoan gates. So in a roundabout way, it does kind of seem like Kieran Gillen is making it sound as though she is picking up on what Sinister has been doing. Maybe not so much how many times the timeline has been rebooted, but she seems to know something's not right. And whatever that may be, she seems more than happy enough to want to throw Sinister in the hole, as many other people on the Quiet Council, people on the island, and even people reading these comics have wanted the Quiet Council to do since House of X number 6. That said, this series is not done yet. While it does kind of seem like this is leading directly into the Sins of Sinister, it kind of is, but Immortal X-Men number 10 is going to be the issue that's really going to bring us into the Sins of Sinister era, and that issue we know is going to be focusing, at least on some level, on Charles Xavier. He's pretty much the one character on the Quiet Council, other than Colossus, that has not been focused on. And to be fair, Colossus being added to the Quiet Council was kind of a recent addition, roughly about in and around the time that the book had started. Colossus was technically already there, but his inclusion just kind of was like, boom, here it is, and then here comes this book. And with Magneto being dead, there was really no reason to focus on his character, especially since, once again, we've known Magneto for quite some time. And while, yes, I said this book is going to focus on what's been going on with Xavier, I don't think it's going to be in the exact same way as it was with a lot of the other characters. I think it's actually going to be closer to what we just got with Kate Pryde, whereas Kate Pryde was kind of intended to be the focus of this book, or at least that was kind of how it was made to seem. I think it's going to be the same thing with Xavier. I don't think the book is really going to focus on Xavier quite as much as a lot of people may think based on this cover. While I do think we will learn a lot about how Xavier is finally realizing that his dream is literally going from sugar to shit, I think we may also kind of see a little bit of what Magneto was warning Storm about in X-Men Red, about how she should watch Xavier, because it's getting close to a time where Xavier no longer having any checks and balances like Magneto. He's probably about to make some really poor decisions, despite the fact that he just recently was killed, and with Hope Summers dead, that's kind of gonna put a little bit of a hamper on the resurrection protocols right now, because for one, they don't really have a backup plan for it. I mean, yes, technically they do. Sync can actually perform the same function as Hope Summers, and it's even been hinted at as much that he could do so. But we have yet to see that tested, so they're gonna have to bring in Sync to bring back the other characters, and then we'll kind of just have to go from there and see how the rest of this is gonna play out. I will say, I do find it interesting though. We've been talking about Dark Beast a lot since House of X. We've been wondering, like, man, is Hank McCoy, is he secretly operating as Dark Beast? Especially when you go back and think about the times when Dark Beast was impersonating actual Beast, like in the late 90s, early 2000s. In this issue, Kieran Gillen shows us that Mr. Sinister has the head of Dark Beast in his secret laboratories, and even making a jab at him that he's not even the real Dark Beast anymore, that actual Beast is now darker than even he was. Though I do wonder if this is the same Dark Beast head from when Magic killed Dark Beast during the Matthew Rosenberg run of Uncanny X-Men right before House of X had started. I wonder if there's any correlation between the two. There probably is, probably not, who knows. But anyways, I'm really excited for Sins of Sinister. I can't wait to see the Quiet Council attempt to put Sinister in the hole, and I would even find it more funny if we discover that he does actually get put in the hole, and the whole Sins of Sinister thing is just something that's going on in his head. I don't think that's actually the case. I think he's actually going to get away with everything he's trying to do. I think it would just be funnier if it was the other way around, or if we found out later it was just all in his head after everything had already come and gone. It's not that far out of the realm of possibility, especially with everything we learned in the Sabretooth series about what being in the hole, or the pit rather, is like. But anyways, let me know what you thought about Immortal X-Men number 9. Keep it plus ultra, and sound off in the comments.